Okay, so for today's deep dive, I want to start with a little visualization exercise.
Oh boy.
I know every podcast host asks you to close your eyes, so please don't if you're driving. But just for a second, indulge me. I want you to picture Japan.
Okay.
When I say that word, what's the immediate image that just loads in your brain?
Have to be the neon, right? The whole Blade Runner aesthetic,
Yes.
Shibuya Crossing at night, the bullet trains that are always on time.
Yeah.
Maybe a robot serving you tea somewhere in Akihabara.
Exactly. It's the cyberpunk capital of the world. That's the brand, right? For the last, 40 or 50 years, Japan has basically been the world's R&D department.
They gave us the Walkman, the PlayStation.
The pocket calculator, the blue LED. The whole perception is that this is a society living in 2050 while the rest of us are still trying to figure out 2024.
And it's a reputation they earned. They completely dominated the hardware era.
Which is exactly why the stack of research we're looking at today is so, it's confusing. It creates a kind of cognitive dissonance. We're basing this deep dive on a really provocative article, Japan's Digital Stagnation, and it focuses on a new study from Chiba University. And to put it bluntly, this study suggests that cyberpunk image is, it's just an image.
It suggests that underneath all the neon and the high-tech hardware, there's a massive, massive resistance to the biggest technological shift of our generation.
We're talking about the AI adoption gap. And to be super clear here, we're not talking about robots on a factory line.
No, not the hardware.
We are talking about generative AI, the software side, the cognitive side of things.
Right. And the numbers in this Chiba study are, frankly, they're startling. They paint a picture of a country that isn't just hesitating a little bit. It seems like they're actively opting out.
So the mission for us today is to figure out this paradox. How does the country that essentially invented the future
End up rejecting it.
Yeah. And more importantly, is there a logical reason for it? Because, usually when a very smart group of people rejects a new technology, they know something we don't.
Or they're trapped in a mindset that used to work but just doesn't anymore.
Okay, so let's get into the data. Because when I first read this, I actually went back to check the date on the study. I thought maybe I was looking at something from 2022.
Yeah, you and me both.
But no, this is fresh data. The study surveyed internet users in Japan about their usage of generative AI, so LLMs like ChatGPT, image generators, the whole suite.
And this is a pretty simple metric. It's just, have you used it in the last year? It's a very low bar to clear.
Very low bar. In the U.S., if you ask that question, even just, casually, you'd expect a pretty high number.
The U.S. is sitting at nearly 70% adoption among internet users. Even if they're not power users, they've touched it.
They've played with it.
They've played with it, exactly.
Okay. And then you look at China.
China's even higher.
Yeah.
It's pushing past 80%. They are embedding it into absolutely everything.
Right. So you have the two biggest economies in the world sprinting ahead at 70 and 80%. Then you look at Japan, the tech giant. The number is
20%.
Just roughly 20%.
Yeah.
That is statistically wild. I mean, 20% is basically just the early adopters and the tech enthusiasts.
It is.
That implies that the vast, vast majority of the Japanese population, students, office workers, engineers, are just not engaging with this at all.
It's like they're getting lapped on the digital track.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be careful here not to just look at that number and say, Japan is behind. We have to ask who is resisting.
That's a good point. Is this just a demographic thing? I mean, we all know Japan has an older population. Is this just, grandmothers not wanting to use ChatGPT?
The study actually controls for that.
Yeah.
And while age is a factor, of course, even among working age professionals, the people sitting in offices in Tokyo right now, the hesitation is massive. It's not just an inability to access the tech.
It's a refusal.
It's a refusal to engage with it.
Okay, so play devil's advocate for me. Is it the language barrier? We all know that large language models are trained so heavily on English internet data. Japanese is a very contextual, high-context language. Maybe the tools are just bad in Japanese.
That's the first place my mind went to, Maybe it just doesn't work that well. And to be fair, LLMs are historically better at English. But the gap in quality now is not nearly big enough to explain a 60-point spread in adoption.
No way.
The translation and the nuance capabilities, they're there. The tool works.
So the tool works?
The tool works. And the study actually asked people why they haven't used it. And 40% of the respondents gave a very, very telling answer.
Yeah.
They didn't say it's too hard or it doesn't speak Japanese. They said,
I don't see the need.
Exactly. I don't see the need.
That phrase it's so heavily loaded.
It is. It implies that their current workflow, their current way of doing things, is already considered optimized.
So the source material uses this comparison that I really want to dig into. They call it the BlackBerry mentality. Now, for our younger listeners, the BlackBerry was this phone with a physical keyboard that just dominated the business world in the mid-2000s.
It was the ultimate productivity tool for its time.
Right. But the analogy here, usually when people bring up the BlackBerry versus the iPhone, they're talking about like screen size or something. But the article argues it's much deeper.
It is deeper. Think about what the BlackBerry actually represented. It was a single-purpose tool that was perfected for one job: email.
Right.
It had that tactile feedback. It was secure. It was reliable. It fit perfectly into the corporate structure of, say, 2007.
And then the iPhone comes out. It's just a sheet of glass. It's messy. You make typos all the time because there are no real buttons.
Exactly. So if you were a serious business person in Tokyo or New York, for that matter, in 2007, you looked at the iPhone and you said, "That's a toy. I have a keyboard. I can type 50 words a minute without looking. Why would I ever trade that efficiency for a novelty?"
I don't see the need.
Precisely. They were viewing the new technology through the lens of the old metric. And if your metric is typing speed, the BlackBerry wins every time.
But the iPhone wasn't about typing speed.
Not at all. It was about the App Store, the ecosystem, the whole internet in your pocket. A completely different game.
So applying that to Japan today, the argument is that Japanese business culture is the BlackBerry. It's highly optimized, very efficient, very process-driven.
And generative AI feels like that early iPhone. It's messy. It hallucinates sometimes. It's hard to control.
That's a huge part of it. You have to understand this concept in Japan called monozukuri. It's this deep cultural pride in craftsmanship and making things perfectly.
It's Toyota, Sony, Nintendo.
Exactly. They win by making hardware that works every single time. It's deterministic. You push the button, the robot arm moves exactly as it should.
And generative AI is probabilistic.
Right. You ask it a question and it might give you the perfect answer.
Or it might confidently make up a fact about a lawyer who doesn't even exist. So for a culture built on precision and, frankly, strict hierarchy, a tool that's 80% correct most of the time looks like a liability, not an asset.
But wait, I have to push back a little. Japan is also famously the country of the fax machine.
Still.
They still use physical stamps, the Hanko, for official contracts. So is it really about perfection, or is it just stubbornness? Because keeping a fax machine in 2024 does not feel like optimization to me.
It's a different kind of optimization, though. It's social optimization. The Hanko stamp, the fax, the paper trail, those things provide a verified, tangible chain of command.
Oh, okay.
Everybody knows who signed what, when they signed it. It's safe. It fits the hierarchy.
And AI completely disrupts that hierarchy.
Totally. If a junior employee can use ChatGPT to write a report that's better than their managers,
Ooh, yeah.
or if an AI agent makes a decision without a paper trail that just breaks the social contract to the office. So I don't see the need is really just code for this doesn't fit our structure.
That makes so much sense. It's not that they don't get the tech, it's that the tech violates the protocol. But this is where the deep dive gets a little darker, because we're not just talking about office politics. We are kind of talking about national survival.
Right. If this were just a cultural quirk like, oh, they prefer vinyl records to Spotify, that would be one thing. But the economic backdrop here makes this refusal to adopt AI, makes it dangerous.
We have to talk about the demographics. We've all heard the phrase, Japan has an aging population, but I think people kind of gloss over what that actually means for a labor market.
It means the math is breaking. I mean, Japan has one of the oldest populations on the planet. The workforce is actively shrinking by hundreds of thousands of people every single year.
So you have fewer people available to do the work.
And way more elderly people who need care and services.
Exactly. So in a normal economy, you grow by either adding more workers or by making your current workers more productive. Japan cannot add more workers.
Immigration is historically very low. Birth rates are low. That option is off the table.
So the only lever they have left to pull is productivity.
That's it. They need every single worker to be doing the work of like 1.5 or 2 people just to keep the GDP from shrinking.
And this is where that hardware versus software distinction you made earlier becomes so critical, because physical robots are great for building cars.
Absolutely.
But they can't help with the massive amount of administrative, legal, and cognitive work that makes a modern society function.
Spot on. A robot arm can weld a car door. It cannot process an insurance claim for an elderly person. It can't summarize medical records. It can't write code to modernize a banking system.
That's all cognitive labor.
And that is exactly what generative AI is built to automate or augment.
So by rejecting AI, they are essentially rejecting the only viable solution to their single biggest problem.
They're trying to solve a software problem with a hardware mindset. They're hoping they can just, efficiency their way out of it with better processes. But you can't efficiency your way out of a 20% drop in your workforce. You need augmentation.
This brings us to the researcher behind the study, Professor Nakagami, and he issues a warning that it's pretty stark.
He's raising a huge red flag about inequality, but not just the usual, some people are rich, some are poor. He's talking about a fundamental capabilities gap.
He argues this adoption gap will create a scenario where Japanese companies are simply unable to compete on the world stage.
Well, just think about it. If a U.S. company and a Japanese company are competing for the same contract, and the U.S. company is using AI to draft the proposal, analyze the market data, generate the code.
They might do it in, what, 4 hours?
4 hours. Meanwhile, the Japanese company doing it all manually because of process takes 4 days.
It doesn't matter how high quality the final Japanese proposal is at that point.
No, because the market moves at the speed of AI now, not at the speed of manual perfection.
Nakagami has this closing thought that I found. It really arrested my attention. He uses this metaphor that's a little violent, but it makes the stakes crystal clear.
I know the one you mean.
He says that refusing to use AI in the current global economic landscape is like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
It's a brutal image, but it's effective.
It really is.
Yeah.
But let's unpack it for a second.
Yeah.
Because in the movies, sometimes the guy with the knife wins because he's, super skilled.
In the movies, yes. In macroeconomics, no.
Fair point.
The knife represents that traditional Japanese excellence, the monozukuri. It's sharp, it's handcrafted, it's perfect. It represents the BlackBerry keyboard. It is the absolute best version of the old tool.
And the gun is AI.
The gun is the force multiplier. It's messy, it's loud, maybe it's not as elegant, but the output capabilities are just orders of magnitude higher.
So if you bring a knife, no matter how beautiful that knife is, to a conflict where the other side has industrial-scale weaponry,
you lose. It's that simple.
And that is the tragedy of the BlackBerry mentality. You can be the absolute master of the previous era. You can be the best typist in the world. But if the game suddenly changes to who can build an app ecosystem, your typing speed is irrelevant.
And that's Nakagami's warning. It's not about incompetence. It's about obsolescence. Japan isn't at risk of failing because they're bad at tech.
They're at risk of failing because they are over-optimized for a world that doesn't exist anymore.
Over-optimized for a world that doesn't exist anymore. That's a haunting phrase.
It is.
It's the paradox of success, isn't it? Success makes you rigid. You want to protect the thing that worked.
So we have this picture of a nation at a crossroads. On one side, there's the comfort of the fax machine, the Henko stamp, the process that has worked for 50 years.
And on the other, a chaotic, probabilistic, generative future that 80% of their competitors are already embracing.
And right now, only 20% of them are willing to even cross the street.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap this up, I want to turn the mirror around for a second, because we've spent the last 15 minutes or so dissecting Japan's hesitation. And it's really easy for us sitting here to say, wow, they really need to get with the program.
Oh, it's always easier to spot the BlackBerry mentality in someone else.
Exactly. But this isn't just a Japanese problem. It's a human problem. It's a psychology problem.
We all have our knives. We all have those workflows or those skills that we spent, 10 years mastering.
Right.
Maybe you're an incredible Excel wizard. You know every shortcut, every macro.
You can build pivot tables in your sleep.
Exactly. And then someone comes along and shows you an AI tool that can analyze that entire data set in 30 seconds with a plain English prompt.
And what's your immediate reaction?
Defensiveness.
Total defensiveness. Well, can you trust it? Does it really know the nuances? My way's better.
I don't see the need.
Oh.
Huh? Yeah, it is.
That feeling, that defensiveness, is the exact same thing as the Japanese executive clinging to the fax machine. It's the fear that your hard-won expertise is becoming the knife in a gunfight.
So the takeaway from this deep dive isn't just Japan is in trouble. It's really a warning label for all of us.
Right. Look at your own industry. Look at your own daily tasks. Where are you saying, I don't see the need, just because you're really comfortable with the old way? Because if a country as advanced, as innovative, as culturally powerful as Japan can fall this far behind because they refuse to switch tools,
then you are definitely not immune.
And that's the question to chew on this week. Are you busy polishing a really, really nice knife while everyone else around you is loading up? Something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
We'll catch you next time.